I want to go back to your question because it's related to everything that you're saying now for me. Your question was what aspects, what ideal combination of aspects are required in order for this reawakening of Kundalini to happen? And we're talking about the spontaneous reawakening, or we're talking about the very consciously prepared for and assisted and contextualized awakening that has been proven over the ages. And I've been saying how in this age, there is an acceleration. My master used to say, this is the age of hyperspeed progression. And it's written in the text and transmitted orally over the ages that what in the past you would have to labor, as I was saying, for a whole lifetime or lifetimes. And this touches back on what I was saying when I said it's a matter of time before we reclaim our birthright. Life, when I say time, in the tradition I'm referring to, Sanatana Dharma or the Hinduism tradition, that could be lifetimes or various incarnations. So, there is that path where there is no rush, it's going to happen anyway. And then there is the yogi or the tantrika who is oriented to only that, the reawakening or the reclamation of the birthright, to be both limited and limitless in a functional way within this life now. So in this age, if we get now more specific, in this age, and if we go really specific and talk about you said that your reawakening happened, you mentioned pain. There was intensive pain. And this is indeed, in this age, a main factor of Kundalini, spontaneous Kundalini awakening, reawakening, is extreme sensitization, extreme enervation, extreme sensation that would travel through your circuitry, not only the neurophysiological circuits and channels, vessels and systems, but also the subtle body. And this flooding, which tends to be an overwhelming surge and waves and penetration of energy, of sensation, can override, because it's overwhelming, it will flood, saturate, and override the pre-existing structures and patterned ways of thinking, therefore speaking and being. All of that becomes flooded with tremendous force of energy. And the survival, what kicks up as a survival response to that is enough of a force in itself that it will rouse, it will arouse, it will stimulate that dormant cosmic potentiality. In the most extreme situations where you are facing death of your mortal self, there can be, and we've seen this in every age, not only in this age, there can be a response to that will evoke, that will call up from the very depths of being, from the kund, from the base of our spinal cord, at least equal, if not more, of a ferocious, towering, immense power of responsivity, because you're choosing life, you see. You choose life. You choose to surmount. You choose to overcome Even if you're not conscious of it, that's what's happening. And so you're calling on your greater expanded being just to not only face and confront, but to power through the seemingly impossible, which is to bear the pain, to survive the pain. You have to meet and power through the apparently impossible. And it'll stir up the Kundalini from the base. So pain is a, and it's not, again, not just this age and not just in the modern world, but in many nature-based cultures, there is the conscious use of pain applied, you know, again, penetrated and circulated through the nervous system to call up these powers to accomplish the mission impossible. So pain is, yes, it is an ideal aspect or factor in this combination that you asked about. Pain and hypersensitization and overwhelm and overriding of programmed ways of thinking, speaking, and acting. All of that gets override. One of the factors or aspects of that ideal combination is to be flooded, saturated, permeated. And one of the reasons that this reawakening of Kundalini happens so often in age after age during conscious sexuality, or the sexuality of such a nature that you are flooded, you are suffused with more power, tremendous amounts of energy that your system wouldn't normally be able to control in these limiting ways. You know, one of the reasons is, again, is because of this penetration, but also because of the function of magnetism. When magnetism becomes functional, when the negative and positive charges of electricity are combined in such a way that you are in the creative mode, where you are creator, where you are sharing together the substances of love, which floods your system with the powers to preserve and sustain and bind together, to repair, to remedy, to heal. And then, of course, together embodying the dissolving, disintegrating the lies that you are separate. Well, not lies, but the illusion of separation. So there's many combinations. There would be as many combinations, as many ideal configurations of required aspects of factors as they are people. Infinite variance and shifting and morphing and being created and disintegrated every conceivable moment of ideal configurations to reawaken us from the sleep that we are only human.
So beautiful, and at the same time, yes, so absurd to ask if Kundalini herself would be running out of ideas how to reawaken, how to be reawakened. It's like as many options as people and limitlessly more. So beautiful. Yes.
Yes. And I would say one thing: if we were to boil all of those factors, all of those possible aspects into one underlying power to reawaken, to reclaim our birthright, it is essentially vibration. Vibration. And again, we talked about glimpses and touches. We've talked about sounds and words. We've talked about being in the presence of embodied humans, which don't have to be guru, by the way. I refer to guru because that's a tradition that I'm initiated, born into, and what works for me, which may not work for anyone else. So if we even took away those Sanskrit words, we could just say any other embodied being who has already awakened their Kundalini, and not only awakened the Kundalini, but who is sustaining that consciousness power as the lifeblood, the very lifeblood, life breath of being, whether in limited or limitless expression. And generally, it'll be both at the same time. In an awakened Kundalini being, it'll be both limited and limitless at the same time, because Kundalini will sew it all up together. It'll weave those polarities back into a singularity that is both defined and unified at the same time, so that we could both perceive limitation as a defined aspect, functional in and of itself, as well as being able to experience limitlessness without being polarized between one or the other. So being in the presence of an embodied human being will have an impact on you in such a way, like being with a tuning fork, where you start to tune to the same frequencies of functional presence and potentiality. And not just one human being, being with a circle of human beings where you're oriented and resonating at various frequencies, that will be the ideal configuration. So again, if we just simplify vibration, everything is vibrating. That means anything and everything at any time, in any space, could be the trigger. But your question is perfect. I love this question because it does take a combination. The combination of you as the perceiver and the phenomenon that is being perceived. So the combination of the perceiver and the perceived. And there's this understanding that it's not just even two, it's the field of perception that is essential, the underlying substrate, the substratum of the perceiver, the perceiving, and the perceived, all three at the same time. The knower, the known, and the interaction of both, which is the knowing. So this is the ideal combination of factors. It's a triumvirate. The threesome, the triangle, the first form, whether it's pointing up or down.